was like, well, what's that? I was like, what do you mean? They were like, it's Murder Alley. I'm like, Murder Alley? Like, what was that? Set up meetings there, right? And then all of a sudden things would kind of go hectic, which a lot of people get killed because the way it's structured, there's not an exit. Once you enter, if they set you up and you go there, all of the exits are covered and you're pretty much getting shot up and killed. You get people from inside the stores that come out. So there's really no retreat, and then they seal off the two entrance or exits on the other side, or the three, I should say, and then also they would have people on the roof shooting down at you.
You got to do a lot more than you got to need a Uzi to take down a whole bunch of people, and then besides, there's only certain people that, these guys are pretty targeted. These are professionals, right? So one crime scene becomes, forever. That's what you remember.
Etched in history.
Lucky Boys Podcast.
And go.
Supposedly years ago, some police officer made a quote and said, more people die here than any other place in the city of New York. And that became, that became still talked about today.
It's a mischaracterization of what Chinatown is all about.
Right. I mean, there are issues, there's criminal elements everywhere. Back in those days, even, every group every minority group having those issues. But to make it like the marquee issue for Chinese American and Manhattan Chinatown to be remembered by, that would be that's tragic.
Right. And I guess part of the reason why it's got its name. I mean, when I was growing up, when I made Asian friends and started hanging out in the area playing basketball and handball and whatnot. And then when I would go down to Pell to eat, I actually went to Pell Street for summer school, by that little church they had right there. And I was like, well, what's that? I was like, what do you mean? They were like, it's Murder Alley. I'm like, Murder Alley? Like, what was that? So what they were saying to me as a kid, as a teenage kid, they were saying, oh, it's due to all of the gang fights back in the day.
Right.
So they would set up meetings there. Right. And then all of a sudden things would kind of go hectic, which a lot of people get killed because the way it's structured, there's not an exit. Once you enter, if they set you up and you go there, all of the exits are covered and you're pretty much getting shot up and killed. You get people from inside the stores that come out. So there's really no retreat, and then they seal off the two entrance or exits on the other side. Or the three, I should say, and then also they would have people on the roof shooting down at you, so you would get it from pretty much everywhere.
Yeah, the one historic account that because I just don't, I want to know the truth, right? Is that the case? Mm-hmm. The one historical account that I found was that there was a theater there before. They were fighting over a woman, I guess. And then one group went in there and shot up like a bunch of people, like 4 or 5 people. Right.
There was I know that story. It's a rival gang. And the theater group, and this was like 100 years ago, right? It's like in the late 1800s, was it? Right. Or early 1900s. And there were 2 gangs in there, the Tongs during the wars, and they had, I guess, a disagreement, and they were at war with each other. However, at that theater, everyone knew that was neutral grounds.
Right.
And when that faction came, I guess because of that girl, they broke that agreement, one of them, and then they attacked and killed, and that's what started.
I think like 4 or 5 people. I mean, that's what I'm saying. I grew up during the days in, the gangs in different crazy times, and all the theaters used to have shootings, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like,
all of the theaters.
So from my own personal experience, you got to do a lot more than you got to need a Uzi to take down a whole bunch of people. And then besides, there's only certain people that, these guys are pretty targeted. These are professionals. They're not just punks. Just want to, you tell it so many times, and it really happened. It got told more and more, because I'm going to credit the museum, because when they do walking tours, these guys will would bring those up. I actually make it a personal point when I see people giving out tours, I would stand next to them.
and wait until they
and then I
mention
just
it.
say, whoa, 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 whoa.
You're like, I'm part of the
I
tour.
said, wait a minute. That's
not
like
what I
the
heard.
biggest bullshit right here.
I'm looking up right now, yeah, and they're saying exactly that. Like that was a war between the Hip Sing Tong, along with the allies, the Four Brothers, against the An Liang Tong.
Right.
And these gangs ran everything from opium dens to entertainment centers to prostitution rings, et cetera, et cetera. And those were the gangs that were fighting.
Yeah.
And that's how it became known.
Right. So one crime scene becomes, forever. That's what you remember.
Etched in history.
I mean, people are getting killed all over Chinatown, right? Or shot or stabbed. And because it had, I guess, that cachet, that when someone died there or there was a gang war there, then it really brought more attention to it. People was like, oh, see, right there. But when in actuality, when you talk about the more current day, I guess, well, current as in like, I guess, 15, 20, 30 years ago.
The 90s, 80s.
80s and 90s and maybe early 2000s, there was fights and deaths and murders. I mean, all over the place in Chinatown. All over. I remember when I was a kid, broad daylight, walking down right here, right on Bowery Canal, come out the jewelry store. And then all of a sudden, I see somebody come up with a gun, literally walking by me.
Right.
And I also think it's like media. You have a lot of movies are filmed in that exact alley, right?
Yeah.
And New Jack City.
We
is
did one over there too.
Yeah, we filmed there too.
Yeah.
New Jack City, I think, is one of the famous movies that was filmed in that triangle, that alley, and it's always about crime. That happens there.
It's crime. It's the gambling. Like I said, what happened to all the gambling dens, right?
Yeah.
Government says, this is so good. We're gonna legitimize it and we're gonna run it. We're gonna be the house, right? So that's what happened. I think this whole crime thing, and honestly, as a kid, was like, hey, it's not bad. People look at us like, it's all right.
Yeah.
You feel a little safer, all right?
Yeah.
Walk a little swag, but my point is that when our own people start telling it, you legitimize, this false narrative, and we need to be careful about that.
Yeah.
Right, because there's some guy happened to take this one clip, this one incident, and turn it into this whole thing.
Since it's romanticized.
Yeah, but there are other things that really we should talk about that are really more, sadly, crime and all the things that's part of American history.
Yeah.
But the other part of American history is also perseverance,